Hi, I'm Kate. Welcome to Blooms in the Yard. Today I'm excited to give you an update on my seedlings. I started the first of these 24 days ago, so you can see they've grown a lot. I did start another batch then 14 days ago. So I'll show you where everything is at, and then I'm also going to divide and pot up a few things. So you can see that the lettuce looks really great. Basically, as soon as we get through our next little cold snap, I will harden these off and get them out in my pots. If you'll remember, I started with 3 trays of the 12 cell containers. So started with one this size, and then 14 days ago, I potted these up into these larger 6 cell trays. And if there were 2 in one cell, I kept all of them. I ended up with 10 of these 6-packs. So that is all of my lettuce, and that is the Gustav salad and the Merlot. I remember that I like to plant red kale with my lettuce in those pots, but I started this later, so this is 14 days ago that this kale was started, but I know that it grows really fast, so I was not worried about starting it a little bit later. And you can see, sorry, the light is not great in here, that is looking pretty good and is going to catch up with the lettuce in no time. I also started this in the smaller packs and quickly put them in larger cells. I think I have that one. So I still have some in these smaller cells. So I should actually, this is one of the things I should pot up today. I'm going to start my pile. Those look like they could be in bigger containers. So that's what I'm going to be putting in my spring pots. The next thing that we started 24 days ago were the Snapdragons. These are the Potomac Royal. They're looking really good. I did pot them up 14 days ago, so that would have been only 10 days in. Now, I know that we're supposed to pinch these, and I definitely want to, but there's not a lot to pinch off. So I can go ahead and pinch this one and this one as they get big enough. I guess I could go ahead and do these. Pinch those off so that it'll branch into 2 main stems. So I ended up with 3 of these 6-packs when I divided them all up. And there is my 3rd one here. So those are looking a lot better than the other Snapdragons. Let's take a look. Here is let me look at it. This is the apple, Potomac apple blossom Snapdragons, so they're getting there, but you can see the difference is huge. And then these are the cherry twist Snapdragons. These are just about ready to put into some bigger cells. I'll keep those Snapdragons together. Here's how the Coleus is looking. Again, planted 24 days ago and then 10 days later put into these larger cells, and now we are 24 days into the lives of these guys. You can see there's a nice kind of variety of colors there. I started with this 1 pack and I divided them and put the larger ones in here, and then put any little pieces that were left, kept them in here. So that's what's left. Again, out of just starting everything in here, putting 2 seeds in each cell, I got all of these. Definitely the least successful thing has been these foxglove. There are some alive, but they're just not looking great. I'm just holding my breath that those will do okay. I don't know if it's because they had algae so bad early on, or I don't love growing things from pelleted seed, but I doubt that was the problem. I'm really not sure, but my foxglove did so well last year, and this is a different kind, but I'm hoping that the foxglove that I had in my garden and I let the seeds fall. And so I'm hoping that I will at least just get some foxgloves from that. Here is my basil. After 24 days, looking pretty good. Not quite ready to harvest off of yet, but I could go ahead and prick that out so that it will bush out. But I'd like to wait until the part that I prick out is maybe usable for cooking. So, and I ended up with 2 good basil plants. So then I started a second round of seeds 10 days later. So these seeds are 14 days old, these seedlings. I planted them 14 days ago. This is the Salvia, what is it? Amore purple. This is one that I'm going to divide these up today. So any that have 2 are going to get their own cell today. These are also Salvia. This is the nodding Salvia from Baker Creek, and this is the Sirius blue Salvia. I suspect that a nodding Salvia got over here because this is more textured, and I know the Sirius blue Salvia is a little more smooth, so I think that that is the nodding Salvia. So yeah, this I think is ready to be put in a bigger container, and these I need to divide. I also started my Vinca 14 days ago. So this is the tray that I did of the Vinca that I collect out of my yard every year. I don't know what kind it is, but it's a great grower and it's like a dark pink. I'm gonna divide these today and see how many I end up with. So I have at least 12 and almost all of these have 2. This one has 4. That was obviously a me mistake. So we'll end up with, let's see, somewhere between 12 and 24, right? I'm going to start with this nodding sage. That one was really nicely filled out. I would say that's just about perfect for, I don't want it to be too much circling, but this is gonna do really well in this new potting mix. So I originally planted these in seed starting mix, and now I'm putting them in potting mix, which will have more fertilizer. And generally, I find that when I pot them up, they grow pretty quickly and do really well. Here's another one that is just about perfect to be potting up right now. that is my Sirius blue Salvia. Built this up with about an inch, half inch to an inch of water. I'm gonna water them that way. So I have these little bits left. I've got 1, 2, this I think is a nodding sage, 3, 4, 5, but they're pretty small. So I'm kind of tempted to just put them right back in here, but with an individual cell instead of sharing a cell. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. But I am going to give them fresh potting mix. So again, this will give them just that little bit of fertilizer. And having a cell to themselves now instead of sharing one should help them. I like messing with my seedlings every week or so. So I don't mind, yes, I'm gonna have to then pot these up pretty soon. If you're like, that is ridiculous, that's way too much work, then you could just go ahead and pot them up now. But I'm just okay with kind of having a few extra steps. I like just messing with plants, and I have just found that this method works pretty well for me to start small and then even just having them move into their own cell after a little while with some potting mix instead of the seed starting mix. And then from there, moving up to a bigger pot. Like I said, I don't mind kind of fussing with the plants. If you don't want to fuss with the plants that much, then you could go ahead and put these all in the larger 2-inch cells. And I call them 1-inch cells and 2-inch cells. I don't know that they're exactly 1-inch and 2-inch, but that's just what I call them. If I have some little things that I can put in here with this, I'm just gonna set that to the side for now. Next, I'm gonna do my kale, and all this needs, I've already separated them for the most part into one plant per cell. So now all I'm doing is moving them up to a bigger pot. These are pretty dry, which might just make them a little bit tricky to come out. Those corners always dry out more quickly. But this will be much happier, I think, in this bigger pot. This one's definitely ready to move up. I'm gonna be honest, I pull it out by the stem because I do it very gently. I think I've maybe broken 1 or 2 plants ever. But when I pull it out, what they suggest is to pull it out by a leaf. And when I do that, the leaf just comes off every time. So I do it by the stem. It works for me. I think everybody just needs to kind of find what works for them. So there's my first 6-pack of the kale. So like I said, this kale, I do use it in my spring containers with my lettuce. I had a couple of really big of this red kale in my potager garden, and I just really love the purple color of it and the texture of the leaves against some other things. It looked really, and the thing about the kale is this kind at least does well for me through the summer, whereas the lettuce will definitely peter out when the heat sets in. Okay, this is a little tiny baby. We'll see how he does. Next, I've got my Vinca. Another thing that potting them up into larger pots with fresh soil does, or one thing that you can do, is bury them a little bit deeper. So if they've started getting a little bit leggy, you can bury that stem a little bit. I have found that that has worked with pretty much everything I've done. There may be some plants that maybe wouldn't appreciate that, but like basil and this Vinca and the Salvia, I don't think I've ever had any problems doing that with any of my plants. So if they're getting kind of tall, you can bury them a little bit deeper. So I had 23 Vinca out of that one 12 pack. I do have an extra spot here, and I'm going to stick that nodding sage in there. I think I recognize it enough that I don't have to label it. This is my last 12 pack. This is the Amore purple Salvia. This doesn't necessarily need a larger container. It really just, I think, could stand to be divided. Like these two are ready to be divided. Those would be fine for a while yet, but I'd like to divide the larger ones. So I'll keep them all in the 1-inch cells and just kind of divide them up and give them their own space. These look pretty similar. The Sirius blue Salvia and the Amore purple. At this point they look similar. They won't look similar later, but I'm gonna definitely need to label these so I don't forget. The Amore purple. Now with the rest of these, I'm gonna just use the same container, but I'm gonna divide them up and give them potting mix. We'll see how this goes. All right. There we go. This is the Amore Plum Salvia. I'm gonna make a label before I forget. So I started with the 4 12 packs, and you can see that they more than double in size because I have 10 here and I still have 2 12 packs, and the rest all ended up in 6 packs. So now I have to go find room for these on my growing shelves. Well, I did it. We're definitely pretty full, but I can always, this stuff down here doesn't have to be under grow lights. I can put it over here in the sun. And then also all of the lettuce will be going outside hopefully in the next week or two. I'll at least start hardening them off. So that will really, I have 2 shelves that I can still use. Today is an exciting day, although it's kind of the beginning of the madness, because anyone who's grown seeds will tell you that if you think starting seeds indoors is crazy, no, that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is hardening them off, because you're having to bring them all inside and outside every day. And this is only 3 trays, so that's not too bad. But once I've got like my entire shelf of grow lights, all those plants coming in and out every day, it can take an hour a day to bring them in and out. So it's kind of exciting, but kind of crazy. But these, I expect to be able to plant these out in my pots in about a week. So this is all of my lettuces and my kale, the Gustav salad, the Merlot lettuce, and then the kale, and it looks so pretty together. I love the bluish tint to this, although this is going to turn more red as it gets more sun. This is the Scarlet kale. Okay, these are 22 days ago I planted these seeds, so they're doing so amazing. The lettuce I planted 32 days ago, but look at that. I mean, it's like perfection, right? I realized why would I grow this in the store when it's so easy? It's not that easy, because you do have to have the grow lights and everything, but if you kind of know what you're doing and you're used to growing seeds, lettuce is an amazing thing to grow. And I think it's really beautiful. This will get a lot more red. You can kind of see where the grow light has been really shining on it. It gets more red the more sun it gets. This is the Gustav salad. It's going to look even prettier when it gets a little more space, so that each one can kind of make a pretty little rosette. It's a cloudy day, so they shouldn't get burned by the sun or anything. They've got a nice, good watering before I brought them out, so the wind shouldn't dry them out too quickly. These are all going to be for my pots, so coming up really quickly. They're going to be decorating all of my pots that I keep in the garden. Some of them are just too heavy or just too big, and I don't want to mess with them. So the ones that are still out, I will add the lettuce. It's an easy thing that doesn't suffer from the cold. One example is I will put some lettuce into these containers along with those arborvitaes. So it's about 60 degrees today. It's been out here. This is its first day out. It's been out for probably 2 or 3 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it back in now. But hopefully in a week it will be ready to fill all my pots, and hopefully the weather will cooperate with that. If we're going to have weather in the teens or something, I'm obviously not going to do that. But if the lows are only in like the high 20s, then I feel pretty comfortable putting my lettuce out in pots. So that video will be coming soon. It took me a few days to edit this video, and in the meantime, everything has grown so much. So here are a few photos with the absolute latest update. Even my foxglove are starting to look pretty good.